introduce Catherine Maiteki from the Uganda National Malaria Control Program, who's going to talk with us about the results of school-based IPT on community malaria, results from the START IPT trial.
Thank you. I'm presenting the school-based treatment with ACT to reduce transmission of malaria on behalf of infectious diseases research collaboration. Intermittent preventive treatment, IPT, is recommended for high-risk groups, including pregnant women, infants in high transmission areas, and children living in areas of seasonal transmission. It has also been shown to benefit school children, and targeting IPT to these children may actually benefit the community, given that these children are infectious reservoirs, so targeting them might reduce transmission in these communities. So we set out to evaluate the impact of IPT in school children using monthly dihydroartemisinin, piperaquine, on indicators of malaria transmission at the community level. And we aimed to test the hypothesis that malaria transmission, as measured by parasite prevalence and entomological inoculation rate, EIR, would be lower in communities surrounding the intervention schools when compared to those surrounding the control schools. So this was a cluster randomized trial. It was in Jinja, which is in eastern Uganda, right close to the Nile and Lake Victoria. We had 84 primary schools, and a cluster was defined as a primary school and the houses surrounding this primary school. And our evaluation included community surveys, school surveys, and an entomological survey. So for the entomological survey, we randomly selected 40 clusters from the 84, 20 from each arm, to participate in this survey. So prior to the trial, we mapped the entire area, we selected schools, and we randomized our clusters. We set out to enroll over 26,000 children into this intervention. We were able to screen just over 15,000, and ultimately we had just over 10,000 participate in the IPT intervention, which was 42% of our target population. Looking at the intervention itself, the rollout of the DP in the schools, we delivered 6 rounds of DP to these school children, and this was between July and December 2014. The blue represents the children who were enrolled. The maroon represents any dose of DP, and the green, those who received all 3 doses of DP. So important to note is our recruitment was rolling. We continued putting children into this intervention. And with time, our enrollment increased. But the proportion of students who actually received 1 to 3 doses of DP varied with the round. And we really struggled to have DP in round 3, which coincided with the school holiday. During that time, you'd actually have to trace children one by one in their homes to get them to swallow DP. So our school surveys were conducted right to the end of the intervention. We conducted them in November to December, the primary outcome being parasite prevalence. We recruited just over 1,000 children from across the 84 schools, and 95% of these were aged between 5 and 15. And just as Dawn mentioned, we found that these children are actually not using bed nets. So only 38.4 reported having slept in a bed net the night prior to the survey. Most but not all of the participants in the intervention schools who took part in this survey actually had taken DP. So we noted that that IPT had a significant impact on these school children. And on the y-axis, we have proportions. The blue is the control, and the maroon is the intervention. So we noted that there was a lower proportion of children from the intervention schools reporting a history of fever 48 hours prior to the survey. You see that we have 20 compared to 56.2 who were in the control schools. And then when we went ahead to test these children who had fever for malaria, we noted that in the intervention schools, there was a lower proportion with who were RDT positive, we have 26, compared to 63 in the control schools, and a lower proportion who were microscopy positive, we have 9.2 compared to 44.1 in the control schools. Looking at what happened in the community survey, our community surveys were conducted after the delivery of the intervention. So we stopped the intervention in December, and then Jan to April we conduct the community survey. And our primary outcome, again, is parasite prevalence. We recruited close to 9,000, the majority being children under 5. So in this population, the bed net use was slightly better. We have 61.7, but important, not majority, who are sampled are children under 5. And we noted that residents from the intervention clusters had a lower proportion of them were microscopy positive when compared to residents from the control clusters. You can see we have 19 overall for the intervention clusters compared to 23, and we have a similar relationship upon age stratification. Important to note is that this result was not statistically significant, but we do see a good trend there. Looking at what happened in the entomology survey, mosquitoes were collected using CDC light traps from 5 randomly selected households out of the 40, 20 intervention and 20 control. So for this, we started sampling mosquitoes 3 months prior to delivering the intervention, throughout the intervention, which was 6 months, and we continued for 4 months post-intervention. The primary outcome being EIR. At baseline, we noted that the households in the 2 study arms were really comparable. And during follow-up, we found that EIR actually dropped in both arms, but more so in the intervention arm, and more so during the period of October to December, when we had better coverage in our intervention. Looking at the association between coverage and impact, we have absolute change in community parasite prevalence on this axis, and we have percentage of children enrolled. We noted that with increasing intervention coverage was associated with a greater reduction in parasite prevalence in the community. But again, our result was not statistically significant. So needless to say, this study was really an uphill task. We set out to take children from one side all the way up the hill to having no malaria. And we did come out with a lot of lessons. When we set out to do our sensitization originally, we thought that we can do good community entry, start at the district, have the sub-county sensitization, and then hit the schools and talk to the parents. But we found that as soon as we touched the school, the community became very sensitive about what we are doing. There were lots of myths about sterilization, why are they giving the children DP? So we had to backtrack and do community sensitization. That was costly, both in terms of time and resources. Then for recruitment and screening, we had PTA meetings. You have a big meeting, have the parents come in, talk to them about the intervention. If they say yes, then you trace the child. The more meetings we held, the less parents were interested. So in the end, we had to switch our strategy to do one-on-one tracing of these patients in the community. We had delays in IRB approvals. Then when we get to delivering the actual intervention, we still had some lessons there. One size didn't fit all, and not at every time. We had Ramadan. Children can't take medicine because they are fasting. We had children missing schools because they're in sugarcane plantations. Then you have to trace the child. Then we had MDA. There was a big NTD exercise that happened right to the end. So someone is giving NTD, someone is giving DP. Drugs for NTD, someone is giving DP. The community was up in arms. So we did, in terms of our summary and conclusions, despite the relatively low coverage of the intervention, we did note that it had a positive impact on the school children as well as on the community. Children in the intervention schools were significantly less likely to have a positive smear. And looking at the residents also, there was a trend in the intervention clusters being less likely to be positive, to have a positive smear. And our entomology survey results also support this trend. So our results suggest that providing IPT to school children does benefit these children and may reduce transmission within the community. And it remains a very attractive option, given that it's operationally feasible, the children are right there, they come to school every day. And these children are also important infectious reservoirs. We still have a lot of gaps and issues to look at and to address to make this intervention easier. How do you achieve high coverage? How do you consent all those children if it's in a research setup? How do you engage this community? How do you integrate school-based IPT with other school-based interventions that are ongoing, LLINs, IRS? Is it possible? Then is it safe? Is it cost-effective? So I'd like to acknowledge all the different players who made this a success. Our principal investigator, Dr. Sarah Stedke, the investigators, study coordinators, key personnel, IDRC core staff, our funders, the participants, the community, and their parents. Thank you for listening.